Welcome to the chapter 250 review for Jujutsu Kaisen. Tons of stuff to go over per usual, but before that, I gotta address the people complaining about Yuta copying Sukuna's curse technique before Yuji was able to get it from eating Sukuna's fingers.
I was gonna do that, and then I came back and
Like, come on guys. You and I both know the chapter was just awesome to say the least. It's time to stop making up complaints for the sake of being different. It's 2024, we need a new flow. This chapter had so much going on, yet nothing really happened except for them throwing hands, which is great. Jujutsu Kaisen, in my opinion, just hasn't really had a chapter of Yuji throwing pure hands, thinking with strategies, and straight up focusing on the fight and the fight alone for a long time. In my opinion, the series is at its peak when Yuji's on the screen doing this, so it's good to finally see him back in action. And I know some people are gonna say, why isn't he talking about Yuta, just Yuji? I mean, come on, bro. That's all for the review. We got a lot to say about Yuta here. With that being said, let's get into it. Look, it's winter. I know we're all starting to cozy up and snuggle in our own beds. However, I have something better. It's the perfect time to get into a game with unparalleled graphics, 800 unique champions to collect, and insane boss battles. Just from 800 unique champions alone, there's only one game you can do this in, so you know what I'm talking about. That's right, Raid Shadow Legends. To celebrate the winter, Raid has decided to drop a lot of cold champions such as Sir Nicholas, a powerful HP based champion. As he's a void legendary champion, he's already top tier. He hits hard with his skill multipliers, and his second skill plays a valuable shield that is based on damage dealt. And if the shield wasn't already powerful enough, his third skill places unkillable and continuous heal buffs for 2 turns, making him viable in every aspect of the game. Sir Nicholas is truly top tier, but he's only one of many new frosty additions to the game. There's also Pixie Yellow, the High Elves. With one of the most dope designs in the entire game with her dual bladed double fans, she brings many benefits to your team, such as an aura skill that increases your allies' resistance to crowd control effects, but not only bring your team resistance, but many valuable buffs such as Perfect Veil, increased defense, and continuous heal, meanwhile giving debuffs to the opposing side such as Weaken and Freeze. And these powerful characters is only where the celebration begins, since Raid has just dropped his biggest feature since the Doom Tower, the Cursed City. And man, with 100 stages to complete, including stages where you'll have to fight 2 bosses at once, and the city even has more to offer than this, as if you complete all of the quests and bosses, you'll get your hands on a new mythical champion. So make sure you download Raid so you don't miss out on all of this festive goodness. With Raid dominating the market for years, if you haven't started playing yet, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses available only with my link. You'll get 2 epic characters with this link. Not 1, but 2 at the same time. First is Lightsworn, a very strong epic champion from the Sacred Order. His kit allows you to keep a team alive with an increased defense buff and a revive on death skill. And the second is Epic Juliana after reaching level 15 in the game. She's an epic champion and a boss killer from the Sacred Order as well. She's an attack type warrior wielding the magic affinity, and thus is a very strong matchup against enemies with affinity. Once you're in and destroying your enemies, come find me under the name JJK100 and join my clan of that same name, and we'll be legends together. So hit my link in the description and I'll see you guys on the battlefield. So we now enter the chapter with Yuta posing real clean. You know, when a chapter begins giving you the entire description of a character's ability, we're gonna see some crazy hands. And as Yuta steals himself, the narrator explains to us that Yuta's domain allows him to choose any of the abilities that he's copied to imbue the barrier with as the domain's sure hit effect. And then his remaining copied abilities are scattered randomly amongst the katanas within his domain, but only Akotsu can use these blades. And even then, not even he's aware which technique is inside of each individual katana until he grabs it. Lastly, each katana can only be used once, but their number is infinite. If you peep my previous videos, you'd see that I had a theory of Yuji's soul splitting being a part of his cursed technique, and that Yuta was going to copy Yuji's technique and spread it across all of his swords and have himself, Ino, Kusakabe, and Yuji jump Sukuna with soul splitting attacks. However, we all know that Gege Akutami watches my content and hates me more than any other JJK YouTuber, so of course he debunked this video before it was even up for a week. Oh yeah, you guys leave your predictions down below as to what you believe Yuta has imbued the domain with. I think that it's sky manipulation, judging from everything that happened in this chapter, but I see people saying that he's going to use Hollow Purple with this domain, so I'm unsure as to whether or not I'm interpreting this sure hit correctly. Once we get Yuta's ability description, the blade that he's currently holding is imbued with Dru's curse technique, and they shoot towards Sukuna, wrapping him with the domain that they use to allow Yuji to get a strike hit. In case you forgot, Dru's technique is to send Shikigami that wrap around their target and create a domain around the path that they travel. If their target steps out of that domain, they get cut up, so they have to remain within the path that the Shikigami created if they don't want to get hit by this technique. Think of it like the sea bear protection ring from SpongeBob, where if they stepped outside of it they got mauled. Although I do believe that once it hits you once, the ability is over. This could be something that could bypass the Limitless. If you remember, Dru did conquer an entire era single-handedly with this technique. Once Sukuna does get struck by Yuji, he shows that he does feel it a bit due to Yuji's ability, but he doesn't have time to focus on that, as Rika's coming in straight from above. Rika is easily dodged, but Sukuna steps outside of the domain created by the Shikigami and gets cut up due to not understanding Dru's ability, but he figures it out at that moment. We then see Yuta flying upside down from the sky, so we already know that he's using sky manipulation. And as the two prepare their next actions, Sukuna begins to explain to us that since Gojo's exhausted him, he can't use his domain and his reverse curse technique is nerfed. And at this point, his curse energy matches Yuta. If you remember in 225, Yuta states that Sukuna at his full capacity has 2 times his curse energy, or even more than that. So right now, Sukuna has less than half of his curse energy. On top of all these factors, being stuck in a domain renders him unable to chant or just one-shot Yuta with the world-cutting dismantle, since he has to focus on using Hollow Wicker Basket. And lastly, before Sukuna can even tell us, we see Rika preparing to beam Yuji like a missile toward him. And Lord, we know they're gonna go insane with that scene when it's animated. And Sukuna puts his attention toward Yuji, but Yuta takes that chance to attempt an attack. But Sukuna being Sukuna, parries them both, and he continues, saying that it's the same logic behind his attacks when he fought Mahito. He's able to sense the soul and attack it directly, but in this instance, he aims for what connects both Sukuna and Megami's souls, the barrier that lies in between them, and by striking this, he disrupts their connection and weakens it, and the more this connection is weakened, the more that Sukuna's curse energy output and his control over Megami's body drops. Under these circumstances, all they have to do is keep attacking until he can't use his anti-domain technique, and then they can activate Angel's curse technique, Jacob's Ladder, in order to complete the job. And I've got to say, I love this whole Sukuna versus everybody fight here. Genuinely just amazing stuff. We see that Yuji's holding on to Sukuna to restrict him as Yuta attempts to attack. And as this happens, Sukuna begins to cleave through Yuji's body, and you can really see on Yuji's face that he does not want to experience that again. But before it can fully cut through him, Yuta grabs another blade and manages to roll Inumaki's cursed speech, telling Sukuna to not move. Someone asked me why Yuta could do this, and remember, in terms of total curse energy, Yuta and Sukuna are around the same level currently, so it does allow him to hit Sukuna with this with no repercussions. And as Sukuna is stunned, Yuta grabs another blade and rolls Thin Icebreaker. This attack sends Sukuna flying, and Rika wastes no time following up with a punch, giving him the karma that he's owed from using Agito against Gojo. But unlike Agito, she doesn't stop with just a punch. She clasps both of her hands and gives Sukuna a good old jackhammer downward, with our two MCs wasting no time to follow up. And as Sukuna comes out of this rubble, he launches hella dismantles towards our boys, and there's nothing they can do but block. But Rika's just on it again. But Sukuna has clearly had enough of the queen, and catches her punch this time around, and sends a mean roundhouse to the face. And even then, she still pushes forward with that punch. And Sukuna tries to create more space, but he begins to think once more, and pay close attention to this. Sukuna points out that if he does not make direct contact, he won't just be able to instantly delete our heroes, just as he was with Ryu Ishigori. And I think Ryu being used as a reference here is significant, because a lot of people thought old boy was just weak, but Sukuna has found his output to be noteworthy. Sukuna makes it clear that Yuta and Yuji do not surpass Ryu in toughness. This leads us into the reasons he's unable to one-shot them like he could with Ryu. His output being lowered from Gojo, the team of sorcerers' tight defense, their abilities to heal, and not to mention the domain itself only focusing on Sukuna. Shout out Yuta, because this seems to be a huge feat of sorcery judging by how Sukuna questions this feat. He goes on to ask our boys, what have they done this month? And they give polarizing answers, with Yuji saying hard work and Yuta saying we cheated. No wonder you got replaced, buddy. Yuta also goes on to say that if it weren't for Gojo's efforts, Sukuna would have annihilated them instantly. And Yuji basically says that they have a long road up ahead because he won't be losing to Sukuna. With Sukuna making it clear that they're not as tough as Ryu was, that he has half of his curse energy, and Yuji's attacks disrupting his curse energy output and control over Megumi's body, and all of the other nerfs, Sukuna could quite possibly be at 10 fingers of power as we speak. He is extremely nerfed in this battle against these two. I think that needs to be made clear, and even then it still feels neck and neck. I've been wondering why he wasn't throwing out them skyscraper world cutting dismantles like he did against Kashimo. This chapter tells us why. And even against Kashimo, he wasn't at full strength. Sukuna is a monster. I wanted to point this out because a lot of people were saying that I'm overrating Yuta, when in reality, I just don't think Yuta's a bum that's going to get dropped in 3 chapters, and Sukuna being this weakened, I think does kind of prove my case. Characters in Jujutsu Kaisen are way stronger when they're jumping people instead of working alone as well, so I think Yuta really has a good chance here. As round 2 begins, Rika dashes towards Sukuna with Yuji taking the other side. Yuta, seeing this, takes the opportunity for a frontal strike, and then we see it, boys. You guys know I've been asking about Charles since like chapter 244, and we finally get our answer. Yuta has stolen the ability from Charles and wastes no time using clairvoyance to bop Sukuna and punch him from the side, and we then see Charles for the first time in like a year. We haven't seen this guy in Daido, Mio, characters like that for a while, so it's nice to see one of them. After this, Yuji wastes no time in synchronizing an attack with Rika to Sukuna, and if you pay close enough attention, he does a double open palm strike exactly like Gojo did to Maharaga in 233. I just found that pretty cool, and we cut to Sukuna's thoughts once more. He lists all of Yuta's abilities and asks if Yuta can use the Limitless, but he dismisses this, saying that since he doesn't have the 6 eyes, he can't use it anyways, so he doubts that he has it. And then we pair into Yuta's thoughts, with him saying that Sukuna will be caught off guard by a technique that he has not used yet, and so he grabs another blade and claims that this is the one. Yuta uses sky manipulation with one blade in his hand to block Sukuna's vision, and then he stabs through the sky manipulation with another, to which Sukuna catches, and it's at that moment Yuta uses cleave. And as Sukuna realizes what just happened, the chapter ends. So I haven't really seen people talk enough about this moment here. I think it's a massive deal because it's finally going to show us what exactly Sukuna's curse technique is. Like if it's more than what we already believed the shrine was, and lastly, if that fire he creates is a part of the ability as well. I do believe that the fire is created from friction of Sukuna using a lot of slashes in the same way that he created that mini barrier in the previous chapter. So it could be. You guys let me know if you think there's going to be some big massive reveal behind this technique and Yuta having it, or if we were getting played into overthinking it for the last 200 chapters or so. Overall, this chapter was mostly hands, so I don't have too many things to say after it, but I will say thank you guys for watching and all of your support as always. With that being said, I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.